Mm. Welcome everybody. I just want to make sure that each team has all of their participants.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I just want to make sure that each team has all of their participants. Team E, are you all here?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. And Team G, are you all here?
Yes, we should be.
Perfect. Okay, we will get started shortly. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Emma Aubrey, and I'll be serving as your judge today. Is there a bailiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And do we have 2 to 3 raters here?
I'm here, and I think Katie Madden's here too. So we have 2.
Yes, I'm here, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. Can I have all of the teams introduce themselves, please?
Who would you like to start? Go first, or prosecution or defense?
Why doesn't the prosecution go first, please?
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Melody Douglas, and along with my co-counsel, we represent the state of Washington.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm co-counsel on behalf of the state of Washington. Our witnesses would now like to introduce themselves in order of appearance.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Josephine Mack, and today I'm playing Mayor Merrill Graham.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Will Hegel, and today I will be Wesley Everett.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Jake Benton, and I'll be playing Del Hubbard.
Oops. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sam Leppert, and I'll be playing Detective Jaden Brandberg.
That is all of our witnesses, Your Honor.
Thank you. And is the defense ready?
Yes, we are. Hi, I'm Aditya. I am the attorney for this court thing.
My name is Nihal Verma. I will also be a defense attorney for this case.
Sorry. Okay. My name is Julie Zaki, and I will also be a defense attorney.
And would the defense like to introduce their witnesses?
Yes, we would. Witnesses.
I'm Sneha, and I'll be playing Aylin Strong.
I'm Nikki, and I will be playing Tracy Whitney.
I'm Alyssa, and I will be playing Robin Heath.
I'm Trisha, and I'll be playing Britt Smithson.
And is that the end of the defense's witnesses?
That is correct.
And can any of the raters tell me whether there are any conflict of interests with any of the participants?
Nope, no conflict, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I have no conflicts.
Okay, and so these proceedings today cannot be video or audio recorded unless there is permission of all participants. Are there any preliminary matters before we begin?
Yes, we do. We would like to take down Exhibit 4, and Julie would like to present that.
Hi. Actually, we would like to take down Exhibit 5, and for the reason following, we'd like to do this because the participants are unclear, so the exhibit would be used on kind of like a basis of speculation. Also, in Tracy Whitney's statement, she does not recall any specific messaging with Wesley Everett like that in Exhibit 5. They don't look familiar to her. There are also no names or times provided in Exhibit 5, so we don't know for sure if it was actually them who said that.
Counsel?
May we respond?
Or moment. Counsel, could you wait until I get to Exhibit 5, please?
Oh, yes.
And you can proceed, counsel, defense counsel.
Okay. We'd like to take down Exhibit 5 because the participants are unclear, so the exhibit would be used on a basis of speculation. This is shown in Tracy Whitney's statement. She says she doesn't recall any specific messaging with Wesley Everett through these back channels, and she also mentions that the messages in Exhibit 5 don't look familiar. There are also no names or times provided in Exhibit 5, which makes it doesn't make the identities of the messengers clear, so we don't really know who said anything.
Your Honor, according to the stipulations on page 2 of the case packets, all the listed exhibits have been properly authenticated and will be admitted into evidence.
And does the defense have a response to that?
No.
Well, I will be admitting Exhibit 5 today. Does the defense have any other preliminary matters or motions?
No, Your Honor.
And is the state ready to proceed with their openings?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. In the center of Barryton, Pine County, there's a statue of the town's founder, Alton Berry. On September 16th, an aggressive crowd surrounded this statue. The crowd was made up of people mostly unfamiliar to the locals of Barryton, such as Del Hubbard, a groundskeeper. Del Hubbard, who had attended all of the 4 previous DMIT protests, said that this one felt different, that there was some sort of tension. After DMIT had failed to request that City Council take down the Barryton statue, they had resorted to angry rallies. At this 5th protest, most of the members of the DMIT organization were watching a broadcast on their phones or tablets. On this very broadcast, a projected image of Tracy Whitney was shown. As Whitney's face was shown on the broadcast, the volume was turned all the way up, and Whitney was heard shouting, "Energetic Tango." Now, this phrase to the average Barryton resident had no meaning, but it was memorable. A phrase this odd could only have meaning to those who had discussed it and heard it before. In this trial, you will hear how this was a phrase for the local DMIT chapter to spring to action, violent action. When the local DMIT chapter heard this phrase, they had their marching orders, and they were ready. Wesley Everett was handed a sledgehammer by Britt Smithson, which he used to assault Del Hubbard and destruct the Barry statue. When Everett swung this hammer, on his third swing, he hit the arm of the Barry statue, which snapped off, fracturing the scapula and breaking the collarbone of the nearby Del Hubbard. He then swung again, swinging the hammer towards Del Hubbard's skull, severely injuring him. Now, while this protest might seem like a one-time occurrence, it is not. In Australia, at a similar DMIT rally, the protesters assaulted a city employee while trying to take down the statue. On multiple occasions, Tracy Whitney has been behind an organization that used violent tactics to get Tracy Whitney's wishes. Across many different forms of communication, Tracy Whitney has used code words like energetic tango to cause property damage and injure anyone who they deem necessary. Furthermore, Whitney has been able to cause lawless action without having their own name dragged through the mud. Tracy Whitney ran a violent movement from behind a curtain. While Whitney never did anything with her own hands, she did persuade Everett to swing the hammer on September 16th. As Britt Smithson said, the members of the DMIT organization had their marching orders. Today, the prosecution brings 4 witnesses. First, you will hear from Mayor Merrill Grimm. From Mayor Grimm, you will hear about the threat she received from Tracy Whitney and other DMIT members. In these threats, Whitney demanded the city's submission to avoid unpleasant consequences for the city's employees. Next, you will hear from Wesley Everett. From Everett, you will hear how he was convinced by Tracy Whitney to act violently. When Everett heard the phrase energetic tango on September 16th, he had his marching orders. Next, you will hear from Del Hubbard. Del Hubbard will tell you about what he heard at the 5th DMIT rally and the damage that was inflicted upon him by the DMIT organization. Lastly, you will hear from Detective Jaden Brandberg. Detective Brandberg is the lead investigator at the Barryton Municipal Department, and his specialty is in code languages. Detective Brandberg will talk about how Tracy Whitney set up code words that were used to communicate violent, direct action. This is a case of a wizard behind a curtain, pulling the strings and pushing buttons. Throughout this trial, you will see how Tracy Whitney, the one behind the curtain, gave the members of the Barryton DMIT chapter their marching orders. We, the prosecution, are sure that at the end of this trial, you will return a verdict of guilty on all charges. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense have an opening statement?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, and members of the jury, this case is about a big misunderstanding. The defendant, Tracy Whitney, was misunderstood as the person controlling the strings in the incident that happened on September 16, 2019. I know this seems like a straightforward case, but there's more than that meets the eye. Tracy Whitney was the founder of Debunking Myth Stories, DMYT for short. She is simply a cheerleader, cheering and encouraging for our chapter leaders to work towards a big goal, the goal of bringing truth to people. The 5th and final protest was held on September 16, 2019. The crowd was protesting with the DMIT to bring down Alton Barry statue. This is when Wesley Everett decided to take action and use the sledgehammer to break the statue. Del Hubbard, the head groundskeeper in the Facility Management Division of Barrington Municipal Public Works Department, tried to stop his action. By doing so, he got caught in the crossfire and received a heavy injury on his head. A protest is a statement or an action expressing disapproval of objecting to something that does not introduce violence. Tracy Whitney was misjudged by one of her employees, Wesley Everett, to act instead of say. Tracy started this to let people's voices be heard, and there's nothing wrong with that. The words of Tracy should not be accounted of crimes as crimes, since words never equated to a crime. But even with this event of misunderstanding, Tracy Whitney still perceives through all of this. So we ask you, the member of jury, and Your Honor, to recognize this event was a misunderstanding, conclude the verdict of that Tracy Whitney, a simple cheerleader who was misunderstood, is not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. And would the state like to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Give me 1 second. I just wanted to point out really quick that the defense did have a pretrial that they were supposed to bring, but we can move on to witnesses if you want.
Yes, I will hear that motion now, and I apologize, counsel.
Okay. Thank you.
You may proceed with that motion.
The defense brings the motion.
I thought defense did bring their pretrial motion. They tried to suppress an exhibit, and that motion was denied.
Yeah, they did bring the motion. They tried to.
Yeah, it's just in the planning in the packets, it was that they were asking to not admit something else. We can just move on, though.
I think I understand what she means. We were supposed to do 4, but it looks like something changed in the middle, so we did 5 also, and decided not to do 4. Yeah.
That's okay. We can just move on to our first.
Thank you.
Thank you. The prosecution would like to call Mayor Merrill Grimm to the stand. Please state your name and spell your last.
Mayor Merrill Grimm, Grimm.
Where do you live?
I'm a proud resident of Berrytown, Washington.
And what is your occupation?
I'm the mayor of this amazing town.
Now I'd like to ask you about who Alton Berry was. Who was the founder of your town?
Alton Berry.
And what else did Alton Berry do?
He created the sawmills and every other functioning piece of equipment and, what's the word? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. He created the planning and the sawmills for the town.
How is Alton Berry related to you?
He's my great-great-grandfather.
Are there any monuments in remembrance of your ancestor?
Well, there was a statue in the middle of the town, but that had to be taken down for safety reasons.
Now I'd like to ask you about your decision to spend government funding on the statue of Alton Berry. As mayor, why did you decide that spending money on the statue of Alton Berry was in everyone's best interest?
Well, the statue was in the center of the town, and so by making it look more appealing, we decided that would increase tourism and town spirit.
I understand that some people were not very happy about your decision. Could you please tell us about what these people wanted you to do instead?
They wanted us to take down the statue and spend the money elsewhere.
What were some of the ways people expressed their displeasure towards you?
Well, I received many emails and phone calls, and I eventually had to change my personal number, but they also used social media.
That sounds horrible. What organization were these complaints from?
They were from Debunking Mystery.
Could you please, did you ever hear anything from the head of Debunking Mystery?
Yes, I received a letter.
Would you recognize a copy of this letter if it was shown to you?
Yes.
Permission to screen share Exhibit 6.
Granted.
What is this?
This is the letter I received from the Debunking Mystery.
Is it a true and correct copy?
Yes.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
It has not.
Your Honor, the prosecution now moves to admit Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Admitted.
Thank you. What is the title of this letter?
Removal and destruction of Alton Berry statue.
And who signed this letter?
It is signed as Debunking Mystery Organization, Tracy Whitney, President.
How did this letter come across to you?
Well, it was rather threatening. It demanded that we take down the statue or else.
Now I'd like to read to you the last paragraph of Tracy Whitney's letter. We demand that you present this proposal to the City Council and seek their quick approval of our proposal. Immediate compliance will avoid any unpleasant consequences for Barryton, its facilities, and its employees. Your prompt attention to this matter is expected. How did this paragraph make you feel?
Well, this last paragraph was the main part of the letter that I found threatening.
How did you and the City Council consider these demands?
Well, we held a meeting and we thought about whether or not we wanted to take the statue down, and we unanimously voted to keep the statue.
Did the DMIT group give up after that?
Oh, they most certainly did not. They started protesting around the statue.
Could you please tell us about the verbal threats you received?
Yes. Brett Smith and 4 other people came into my office. They told me to take down the statue or else, and then as they were leaving, they knocked down chairs and slammed doors.
Was the protest on September 16th the first time the DMIT group was aggressive?
No. During the previous protests, they were rowdy and left rather large messes, but there were never any real physical violence.
Could you please tell us about the speeches at these protests?
Yes. These speeches were all talking about how awful Alton Berry was and how he did not deserve a monument. And then after the speech, everybody would chant the same words over and over again. Energetic tango.
Did they shout energetic tango between each speech?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense have any questions?
Yes. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
So, did you already know of the DMYT movement before the incident?
By the incident, do you mean the September 16th protest?
Yes.
Yes, I'd become aware of them due to their frequent appearance at city council meetings, as well as their harassment over social media, email, and phone calls.
Did you previously have a friendly relationship with Britt Smithson?
Yes, she was very active at the city council meetings and was never really harmful during the first few years.
You mentioned letters that you received from Tracy Whitney. Do you know if those were written by her?
Well, they were certainly signed with her name.
And the signature at the bottom, was it typed or signed with her hand?
The letter was typed.
So it would be pretty easy to forge, right?
I suppose it would.
Action relevance.
Overruled.
And do you agree with the sentiment of the DMIT movement?
No, I do not.
And did they make your job a lot harder?
Can you repeat the question?
Did they make your job a lot harder?
They certainly added a fair amount of annoyance, though they did not make the vast majority of my job harder.
You mentioned in your affidavit that when members of the DMIT organization attempted to exercise their right to free speech at the council meetings, that you were annoyed and had to suffer in silence. Is that true?
Yes, it's gotten rather boring to hear the same arguments over and over again.
You also mentioned being annoyed by their protests, calling them a local embarrassment.
Yes, they had also blocked the entrance to the city, this main city building. They were making it so that employees couldn't enter.
And did you inquire to police about stopping these protests?
Well, it was more of just clearing the path to the building so that people could enter safely.
Is it true that you were told by the police that there was nothing you could do because these protests were peaceful and they were in the law?
Yes.
And did you attend a DMYT protest in August 2019?
Yes, I attended one protest.
There, did you witness Wesley Everett being outspoken, rough, and violent with other members?
No, I did not.
Are you sure? In your affidavit, you mentioned that you saw Wesley Everett being outspoken and rough with other members.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I did.
Okay. No further questions.
Does the state have any follow-up questions?
Yes, just one, Your Honor. Mayor Grimm, was debunking mystery aggressive and threatening towards you and your town?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any follow-up?
No, I do not.
And is the state ready to, or actually, can you hold just one moment? Okay, and the state can proceed with its next witness.
The state will now call Wesley Everett. Good morning, Mr. Everett. Mr. Everett, where do you live?
I live in Barrington, Washington.
And how long have you lived in Barrington for?
It's been about 3 or 4 years.
Now, are you aware of the local DMIT group?
Yes.
And what made you want to join the DMIT group in the first place?
I was kind of lonely and had nowhere else that I really fit in.
And you quickly became very active in the DMIT group, right?
Yes. Yes.
Did you ever communicate with DMIT's head, Tracy Whitney?
Yeah. Yes, on several occasions.
And did you notice anything in your conversations that was strange?
We did talk about using code words, and most of our chats were encrypted.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 5.
You have permission.
I'm now showing both parties Exhibit 5. Mr. Everett, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And does it look like a fair and accurate representation of the original?
Yes.
Has anything been changed or altered in this document?
No.
I now offer Exhibit 5 marked for identification to be admitted into evidence.
Exhibit 5 will be admitted. Or excuse me, does the defense have any objections?
No.
It's admitted. You may proceed.
Madam Bailiff, would you please scroll to the second page? Mr. Everett, I'll now draw your attention to Tracy Whitney's first message on this page. When Tracy Whitney says, ready to bring the hammer down tomorrow, what does that mean?
It means be ready to take action, or at least to me.
Madam Bailiff, would you please scroll down to the bottom of this page? Thank you. Mr. Everett, when you type ET, 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 what is the meaning of that?
What I meant by ET was energetic tango, and of course ×3.
And did you and Tracy Whitney both know what this phrase meant?
Yes, we did.
Now, I'd like to move on to the DMIT protests. What was your understanding of what would happen on the September 16th protest?
My understanding was that we were going to do some rallies and then wait for Tracy Whitney to give us the signal to take direct action against the statue, since all of her courses had not been going as well as intended.
And were you watching the DMIT broadcast on September 16th?
I was the one recording it.
And did you hear the defendant say anything over this broadcast?
Yes, she said energetic tango, as we had discussed during Exhibit 5.
And what did you do once you heard this phrase, energetic tango?
I was rushed up to the stage, not the stage, but the platform of the statue, and then was given a hammer by Britt Smithson.
And what did you do with this hammer?
I proceeded to strike down the statue.
And are you aware of the protests in Australia?
Yes, I remember Britt mentioning it before.
And did the protests in Australia sound similar to the plan that you had for the September 16th protest?
Objection. Speculation and relevance.
I'll move on, Your Honor. Mr. Everett, you are the one who committed the assault here that we're discussing here in court today, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, can you hold for just one moment? I need to rule on that objection. Was there an answer, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. I would just like to move on if that's all right.
Yes.
Mr. Everett, did you commit the assault that we are discussing here in court today?
Yes, it was the hammer that I had been holding that struck Del Hubbard, if that is what you mean.
And did you make the decision to commit these crimes alone?
We were planning to take, but like me and other members of the DMIT organization had been planning to take down the statue that day.
Who else was involved in this plan?
The main contributors to the plan were Britt Smithson, the head of our local branch, and then Tracy Whitney, the head of DMIT in its entirety.
Mr. Everett, why did you destroy the Barry statue on September 16th?
Because I was a part of the DMIT organization, and that was practically all I had as in terms of people that I felt close to, and I didn't want, and if I went against them, I feared to be shut out.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense have any questions for this witness?
Yes.
Okay, you may proceed, counsel.
Why did you continue to stay in debunking this story if you were against their ideals?
What do you mean by this question?
Okay. Why did you continue to stay if you started being suspicious of their actions?
I don't believe I was suspicious of their actions. I think I would rather say that I was more brainwashed than anything. No, not brainwashed isn't the correct word, but I was driven in having nowhere else to go, and they were the only people I had contact with.
Did you ever meet Tracy Whitney in person?
Never in person, but people can become friends online. It's happened before in the past.
What did you hear Tracy say after Britt's speech?
I heard her say across the, not teleprompter, the device that I was recording with, energetic tango.
Were you at the forefront of the attack?
Yes, I was definitely the visual forefront of the attack. I was the only person who actually went up. That's not what I thought was intended, but yes.
How did you harm Dell?
After I struck the statue, after the third time I struck the statue, the arm broke off, causing me to lose my balance, and then that arm and and the hammer that I had been holding ended up striking Dell.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the state have any follow-up questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Everett, what made you destroy the Barry statue on September 16th?
I thought I already answered this question. I felt I was a part of the GMIT organization, and other than my job, but I didn't do it I do it remotely. That was the only part that I could do. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm tired.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And does the defense have any follow-up?
No.
Thank you. Does the state have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The state will now call Dell Hubbard. Good morning, Mr. Hubbard.
Good morning.
Mr. Hubbard, where do you live?
I live in Barrington, Washington.
And what do you do for work in Barrington?
I am a head groundskeeper.
And what exactly does that job entail?
That entails taking care of the statue and picking up trash.
You work with the statue a lot.
Yes, that's correct.
And has the statue ever been damaged before?
Yes.
And do you recall the price of repair?
The price of repair was near $5,000.
And the DMIT group you're aware that the DMIT group is the group that opposed this statue?
Yes, I am aware.
And did you attend any of the DMIT protests?
Yes, I attended all 5.
And how did the 5th protest seem different than the other 4?
The 5th protest, they just seemed kind of off.
What was most of the crowd doing at this 5th protest?
They were all staring down at tablets of some sort.
And could you hear this broadcast?
No, not clearly.
But did you hear anything that stood out to you?
Yes, I heard a ton of things that stood out to me.
What exactly did you hear?
I heard something about House of Cards, or maybe blockhouses, or even a reference to high energy, possibly Takes Two to Tango.
And after you heard all of these things, what happened?
The Wesley Everett jumped up on the base of the statue.
And did Wesley Everett have a hammer in his hands?
Yes, he did.
And what did Wesley Everett do with his hammer?
He hit the arm of the Barrington statue.
Mr. Hubbard, what was the result of Wesley Everett's attack on you?
The result was that I can never do the same line of work again, and I filed for disability.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense have any questions?
Yes. You mentioned that you thought you heard someone say it takes 2 to tango, correct?
No, I'm pretty sure I heard it takes 2 to tango.
Right after this, you also said that the speakers were making too much noise that anyone present couldn't really hear the voice on the device.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that means no one could have possibly known exactly what was said.
No.
Did Wesley say the code energetic tango before hitting the statue?
No.
Can you explain exactly how you were feeling when Wesley dropped the weapon on you?
I felt in disbelief.
How bad were your injuries?
I had fractures in I fractured my collarbone in 3 different places and a fractured scalp.
No more further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the state have any more questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Hubbard, you heard things coming from the broadcast, right?
Yes.
And do you know who was saying these?
I'm pretty sure it was Tracy Whitney.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And does the defense have any follow-up?
No.
Does the state have any other witnesses they would like to call?
Yes, we have one more witness. The state would like to call Detective Jaden Brandberg. Please state your name and spell your last for the court.
My name is Jaden Brandberg, Brandburg.
What is your occupation?
I am the lead investigator of the Major Crimes Unit at the Barryton Municipal Police Department in Washington State, ma'am.
How long have you been in this field?
I've worked in law enforcement for the past 20 odd years.
Could you please tell us about your specialization and involvement in the Drug Enforcement Agency?
Sure. I was recruited into the Drug Enforcement Agency. I worked there for about 6 years. I was extensively trained in reading and understanding criminal coding.
How experienced are you when it comes to deciphering codes?
I'm very experienced, ma'am. Thank you.
How is coding involved in today's case?
Coding is involved in today's case in multiple ways. It's involved with coded messages through emails, text messages, and on their website.
I understand that you went on the DMIT website. Did you collect anything written there as evidence?
I did, ma'am.
What did you collect?
I collected excerpts off of just pieces of the website.
Would you recognize a copy of these excerpts from the website if it was shown to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 2.
Granted.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
These are the excerpts in question.
Is it a true and correct copy?
It is, ma'am.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
Yes, I placed brackets around pieces of quotes by activists that were changed.
The prosecution now moves to enter Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Does the defense have any argument?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
Or an objection? What is your objection, counsel?
Actually, no. Sorry.
The exhibit is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. What are some notable phrases in this exhibit?
Well, there are lots of notable phrases. Some of them include just blockhouse, which is a reference to a Henry David Thoreau essay, and is in code. And also there is, I believe in this, yeah, I think that's about it.
Bailiff, if you could scroll further down just a little bit. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. There's also energetic tango, ma'am. I'm sorry, I forgot about that one.
It's okay. Bailiff, you can stop the screen share now. What does the repetitive phrase energetic tango mean?
In my professional opinion, ma'am, energetic tango is a code word, a signal code, as it's used in the coding community for direct and violent action.
What kind of coding is energetic tango an example of?
Energetic tango is an example of classic criminal coding, ma'am.
What is classic criminal coding?
Classic criminal coding is any kind of relatively standard or consistent use of codes. Some examples of this just include things that are very sort of outlandish and don't make sense in the context of what's going on.
And in your professional opinion, what does the phrase blockhouse mean?
Blockhouse is a representation of ideas or physical things that are against the debunking mystery groups ideas and philosophy, and things that they want to knock down.
What does the debunking mystery website say about violence?
It claims nonviolence.
So is this the first deemit protest to end in violence?
No, I could find 3 different protests in the United States that ended in violence or, some sort of vandalism, and a very notable one in Australia that was very similar to this one, where an employee was assaulted.
Could you please tell us a little bit more about the Australia case?
Oh, sorry. It was basically very, very similar to this one, just almost, like identical.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask you a few questions about the messages you found that were between Everett and Whitney. What does it mean when someone goes to such lengths to hide their online communications?
When I'm involved, encrypted information tends to show sinister activity, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 4.
Granted.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it a true and correct copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Has it been changed or altered in any way?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, the prosecution moves to admit Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Does the defense have any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit is admitted.
Thank you. Does the date of these emails extend into September 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
What are some notable things that Whitney says in these messages?
If you scroll down a bit, Bailiff, there's a pretty notable quotation that I'm not seeing it in this part. There's a pretty notable quotation where Miss Whitney mentions stuff about just willing to sacrifice yourself and others, which I think is a pretty obvious
Bailiff,
representation
it's at the
of
very top page of the exhibit. Thank you, right there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's it just have okay, sure.
Do you think that Whitney and Everett were planning something?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you believe they were planning?
I believe that they were planning exactly what happened. I think it's pretty obvious just from the emails and messages that that's what's going on.
Thank you, Bailiff. You may stop the screen share now. Just a few more questions. I'd like to ask you a bit about Wesley Everett. Did you ever question him during your investigation of today's case?
Yes, ma'am.
How does Wesley Everett's story then compare to his written statements?
It's pretty much identical, ma'am.
In your professional opinion, is Wesley Everett a credible witness?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I do. Would you like me to begin, Your Honor?
Yes, you may proceed.
Mr. Jaden, were you at the protest at the time?
Sorry to bother you. Could you refer to me as detective, please? Thank you. And
of course.
Not at the time. I arrived about 30 minutes after it happened.
All your statements come from Wesley Everett. Am I right?
No, I also have statements from Aylin Strong, and yeah.
But most of your statements come from Wesley Everett. Is that right?
I also have a statement from Aylin Strong, but I also do have a statement from Wesley Everett.
Does Tracy Whitney control the protest herself?
I'm not sure about that. I believe
Objection.
That's trials about
personal knowledge. Beyond personal knowledge.
Do you have a response, counsel?
No, I do not.
If the witness has knowledge of this based on his investigation, he can't answer the question.
I don't have knowledge of this. I think beyond what I've learned. No.
The objection is sustained. Counsel, you may proceed.
May I look at Exhibit 2, please?
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry. Where is it? Just one quick question, sorry. Am I supposed to be sharing this, or would the bailiff be doing this?
And the bailiff, please share Exhibit 2.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Detective, looking at these codes, do you think they could have been a way to motivate DMITE members?
That isn't part of my job. I don't look at quotes whether they motivate something. I'm not sure.
Mr. Detective, do you know, does it take a lot of money to do these kind of protests where people's voices can be heard?
Objection
Again,
relevant.
Counsel, do you have a response to the objection?
I do. I think it's irrelevant. It's relevant because Tracy Whitney did. If she put a lot of money into it, she would. That means she does care about the voices of the people.
Your Honor, may I switch my objection to lack of personal knowledge? I do not believe that Detective Jaden Brandberg would have any knowledge of how much money Tracy Whitney spent on her protests.
I'll overrule the objection and allow the question.
Yeah, okay. I don't have any knowledge of Tracy Whitney's financial information. I don't know what Tracy Whitney spends their money on. Yeah.
In Wesley Everett's statement, does he say he's been manipulated by Tracy Whitney?
I believe it does. I'm not sure.
Is it possible that's sorry? Is that possible that someone else was manipulating Wesley Everett at the time?
Again, I don't know. This is not what I was investigating. I was investigating this case, sir.
All right, cool. Did Tracy Whitney hand the sledgehammer to Wesley Everett?
I wasn't there. Tracy Whitney, from the information I've gathered, was in Ohio.
Was it true that this is the only protest that someone got seriously hurt?
Not the only debunking.
Sorry.
Counsel, what was your objection?
My objection was lack of personal knowledge.
Counsel, do you have a response to that?
No, I do not.
I'll allow the question.
Okay. No, it actually wasn't the only debunking mystery rally that ended in personal injury, vandalism, or violence. There have been vandalism at 3 other protests across the United States, and
I mean specifically to this case. Were there any other violence happened at this case? Other protests?
At other protests in Barrington?
Yes.
Not from what I've heard. No.
All right. That's all I'd like to ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Does the state have any further questions for this witness?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. And does the state have any further witnesses?
No, we do not.
And are you prepared to rest your case?
Yes.
And before we proceed to the defense's case, does the parties need a recess?
We would request a 5 minutes recess, please.
Thank you. We will reconvene at 10:58.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are the parties ready to proceed?
I believe the prosecution is ready.
I believe defense is ready.
Okay, great. And if the defense would like to call its first witness, you may.
I would like to call upon Robin Heath to the stage, please.
And you may begin, counsel.
Can you please state your name and your occupation for court, please?
My name is Robin Heath, and I am a professor at Fair Harbor College.
Can you spell our last name for us?
Yes, my last name is Heath, Heese.
What is your education?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology along with a minor in political science. I also obtained a Juris Doctor degree.
How did you come to be one of the witnesses on court today?
I was asked to look at the communication between the defendant and Wesley Everett.
And what communications were they about? Which exhibits did you look at?
I looked at exhibit number 2 and number 3.
What parts of the communication of Tracy Whitney showed that the defendant was not responsible for the actions of the protester?
Well, I was just looking if the exhibits fit in my standards, which I had. And looking at both exhibition 2 and 3, I thought that it did not meet my standards, which is why I stated my opinion.
What are your standards?
My standards are 3. Number 1, there should be an intention for the imminent law action. And number 2, there should be an action. And lastly, there should be a likelihood that the imminent law action will occur.
What perception did you get of Tracy Whitney looking at the exhibits?
Looking at the exhibits, I did not have an opinion on both of them because since they did not meet my standards, I didn't have any particular opinion.
In your statement, you mentioned that Tracy Whitney is protected by the law and no legal harm will come to her. Could you explain why?
Yes, I believe that she is fit in the First Amendment, which is why I believe that she is safe by the law.
I would like to look at exhibition 2 that's already been brought up.
Bailiff, if you could put up exhibit 2.
Looking at this exhibit 2, what was your interpretation of the exhibit of Tracy Whitney in this?
While looking at this, I realized that there were a lot of capital letters and a lot of explanation points. And while looking it through, I thought that maybe I should interpret the language the way that a normal or someone who is not related to the case would look at it, because that's how the targeted audience will perceive it. I also think that since exhibit 2 talks about historical figures, and I just thought that they're just trying to express their emotions, and there's nothing more intention towards that.
I would like to ask, is exhibition 3 already submitted in?
Yes, I believe so.
May I look at exhibition 3 too?
Your Honor, this exhibit actually has not been previously introduced. Sorry.
Thank you, counsel. Counsel, if you would like to lay foundation for this exhibit.
Actually, I just, no, thank you. I would like to leave. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Professor Hess, you're an expert witness in today's case, right?
Yes.
And you don't know how to spell your name, do you?
What do you mean?
On direct examination, you spelled your name Heese. That is the incorrect spelling. I'd like to move on now. Professor Hess, there are standards that must be met for speech to breach a criminal statute, right?
Yes.
And according to these standards, that speech must be intended to cause lawless action, right?
Yes.
Now, based upon the Brandberg test, speech that is intended to initiate lawless action usually occurs before the action, right?
Yes.
Most speech that takes place far before imminent lawless action does not meet the Brandenburg test, does it?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat your question?
Most speech that takes place long before lawless action does not meet the Brandenburg test, right?
Yes.
And Professor Hess, your conclusion only applies to the statements made on the DMIT website and other exhibits, right?
Yes.
You did not analyze any speech from the September 16th protest, right?
I was told to look at the communication, not any speech.
And the speech on September 16th is a speech that occurred right before the assault and destruction of the statue, right?
If you're asking me questions about the speech, I have nothing to do with that. I was told to look at the communications again.
You have not reviewed any of the speech that occurred directly before the lawless action, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And this is the speech that you said would most likely meet the Brandberg test, right?
Yes.
The only speech you reviewed is speech that would not matter as much in the Brandberg test, correct?
Yes.
Professor Hess, are you aware that multiple people have heard the defendant saying things like energetic tango on September 16th?
I am not aware of that.
Did you not hear Del Hubbard and Wesley Everett saying that they heard the defendant shouting energetic tango?
Again, like I previously mentioned, I was told to state my opinions on the communication, so I have nothing to do with that.
Yes, you don't have an opinion on these, but you are aware that this happened, right?
A little, yes.
And this was a speech that occurred directly before the destruction of the statue, correct?
Yes.
The only speech that would fit the Brandberg test, right?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any follow-up questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. And is the defense ready to call their next witness?
Yes. I call my next witness, Aylin Strong.
You may proceed, counsel.
Please state your name.
My name is Aylin Strong.
What do you do for a living?
I am an assistant reporter for the Barryton Standard.
What was your first interaction with Britt Smithson?
My first interaction with Britt Smithson was when he came into City Hall and pointed out that the mayor is into using tax money to fancy up his own dead relative statue when it was fine just the way it was.
Did anyone in debunking myth theories suggest that they should damage the statue?
No. Throughout the entire process, no one in the D-Mite movement ever suggested the statue be damaged or taken down.
During Britt's speech, did they mention anything about violence?
Britt never mentioned anything about violence during his speech.
Did you hear Tracy saying anything during the protest?
Between the loud crowd and the speakers, it was just too hard to hear anything Tracy could have possibly said during the protest.
What happened during the protest?
At the protest, I saw Wesley Everett shove something into Britt's hand and then bend over quickly and jump up by the statue. By the time he straightened up, the sledgehammer used to strike the statue was already in his hands.
How did Britt react to Wesley attacking the statue?
Britt looked completely shocked. From the moment Wesley shoved something into his hands to the moment Wesley stood up on that statue, Britt was shaking. Even from where I was standing, I could see that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Strong, you've covered the statue story for several years now, right?
Yes.
And over the course of this, you've gotten to know Britt Smithson quite well, right?
We had a good working relationship.
Now, when you interviewed Smithson about events regarding the statue's protests, Smithson commented on what the DMIT organization thought, right?
I don't believe so.
Smithson wouldn't comment on the violence that occurred at the 4th DMIT protest, would she?
I don't think so.
And she wouldn't comment on the campaign of harassing texts or emails being sent to Mayor Grimm, right?
She would not.
And you found this a bit strange, right?
I did, however, I couldn't get clarification.
Now, you covered the September 16th protest, right?
I was reporting.
And you were using a tablet at this protest, right?
Yes.
And were you using this to watch? You were using this to watch the DMIT broadcast, correct?
That is correct.
Now, when Wesley Everett was speaking at the protest, you saw an image flash across the broadcast, right?
Yes.
An image of Tracy Whitney?
It was a computer-generated image.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You know if the image was computer-generated?
That is what I said in my statement.
And you heard something yelled over this broadcast, right?
Yes. I could not hear what was being said.
And after you heard this yelling over the broadcast, Everett stopped speaking, correct?
Correct.
And you saw Everett shove something into Smithson's hands, right?
That is correct.
And you then saw him bend to retrieve something on the ground next to Smithson, right?
I'm not sure if it was next to Smithson. I can't remember that.
And about 30 seconds after you had heard Tracy Whitney yelling across the live stream, Everett jumped onto the statue, right?
That is correct.
And Everett was holding a sledgehammer that he had not been holding before, right?
After he bent down, he was holding the sledgehammer.
And after Del Hubbard was injured, did most of the protesters leave?
Yes.
And did Smithson leave?
I could not find him after the event.
The next time you saw Britt Smithson, it was at a press conference, correct?
Correct.
Where the DMIT organization denied any contact or involvement with Wesley Everett, right?
They did, but I couldn't get further clarification.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense have any further questions?
No.
And is the defense prepared to call their next witness?
Yes. I would like to introduce Britt Smithson to the stand. Could you please state your name for the court and spell your last name?
My name is Britt Smithson, and my last name is spelled Smithson.
And what is your profession or specialty?
So currently, I am the leader of the DMIT Barrington branch, and I am also the head of the Smithson Construction Company.
And did you know Del Hubbard before this event happened?
So prior to this event, I have not met Del Hubbard. Although Barrington is a small town, I have never met the groundskeeper, so I have no bias towards Del Hubbard.
And what kind of work did you do for the DMYT movement?
Basically, I communicated openly with Tracy Whitney. We had talks about strategy, and I would relay this to the other team members, and we would talk about how to debunk history of our local area, specifically with Alton Berry.
And how much contact did you have with her before the event?
Prior to the event, I had to contact Tracy Whitney in order to start the Barrington branch. We would communicate through messaging. We would communicate through messaging and talk about strategies, but that was strictly prohibited to work.
And did you have any meetings with the upper levels of the DMYT movement?
These upper level meetings were with the other upper levels of the DMIT organization, but anyone was free to join. So basically, all they had to do was get a link through me. And basically, although I kept these numbers small, anyone was free to join, like I said.
And was Wesley Everett present at those?
Wesley Everett was present because he asked me for the link.
And how long had you been planning the protest where this incident happened?
So we planned a small series of protests prior to this incident, but these protests were peaceful were mainly peaceful. So that's why the police weren't intervening in these protests.
And at this protest, the one in September of 2019, did Tracy Whitney say anything?
There was too much noise going on at the protest. While Whitney sounded energized, we all were during the protest, and there's too much noise in order to actually be heard. So no one could actually hear what was being said through the tablet.
Did she attempt to be involved in any other way, speaking to Wesley Everett or anyone else?
Oh no. Tracy Whitney would never get herself involved in any of these protests. She would give silent encouragements and speak a little about how we're doing well and praise us, but she would never tell us what to do during these protests.
And what do the words energetic tango mean to you?
Energetic tango is actually a funny inside joke between us. So a video surfaced of Whitney doing a bad victory dance and in the DMeth New Mexico branch, and we made up the phrase energetic tango in order to make fun of her dancing.
No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Smithson, when your local group became a part of the DMET organization, you didn't agree with all of Tracy Whitney's ideas, did you?
That's correct. Some of the philosophies I did not agree with.
To you, some of DMET's ideas seem too aggressive regarding direct action, right?
That's correct.
Now, your group also received handouts and materials from the DMET organization, right?
Yes.
And to you, these materials seem that they could, quote, only lead to violence, end quote, right?
Yes.
Now, you communicated with Tracy Whitney, the head of the DMET organization, mainly through an encrypted online system, right?
Yes.
And you gave Whitney the contact information of Wesley Everett, didn't you?
I did.
And Everett mentioned in-depth conversations with Whitney to you, right?
Yes.
Conversations that were about direct action towards the very statue, right?
Yes.
Now, you don't have access to your part of any of these online conversations, do you?
I do not.
And this is because your laptop fell in the Berry River, correct?
Yes.
And this happened directly after the 5th protest on September 16th?
Correct.
Now, I'd like to ask you about your actions at the September 16th protest. You work in construction, correct?
I do.
And you arrived at the protest after leaving your construction site, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you arrived in your truck, right?
Yes.
And you had some tools in your truck, didn't you?
Yeah.
Was one of these tools a sledgehammer?
Yes.
And at the protest, Everett was recording a live stream, right?
Yes. After I handed my tablet to Everett to record the live stream.
Now, later in the protest, did you hear someone yell something across the broadcast?
I did, but no one could hear what was being said through the tablet.
But you did know that this voice yelling was Whitney's, correct?
I did.
And after you heard this shouting across the broadcast, Everett shoved the tablet back into your hands, right?
I was shocked when that happened because for the most part, Whitney would always give little encouragements. So for Everett to do this was absolutely random.
Now, After Everett shoved the tablet into your hands, he jumped upon the statue's base, right?
He did.
And he now had a sledgehammer in his hands, right?
Yes, I had no idea how the sledgehammer ended up in his hands.
And it was your sledgehammer, right?
Yes, but like I
This-
said before, I had no idea how it ended up in his hands.
Yes, and this is the sledgehammer that was in your truck, correct?
Yes,
Now, Everett was live streaming the protest the whole time, correct?
he was supposed to do that.
And he must have somehow managed to get to your truck, right?
Yes,
And return with your sledgehammer?
that's correct.
Now, are you aware that Miss Aylin Strong said that she saw Everett gather the sledgehammer from the ground near you?
Yes,
And that at a press conference you denied any contact or involvement with Wesley Everett?
during the protest, I did not talk to Wesley Everett at all.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any more questions for this witness?
No.
And does the defense have any further witnesses today?
Yes, we'd like to call our final witness, Tracy Whitney. Please state your name.
My name is Tracy Whitney.
What caused you to start debunking myth theory?
Our organization, it's all about shedding light on what these historical statues actually represent. I'm just trying to be a voice and bring truth to the people. I believe that statues aren't history, they're mythology. Monuments, they normalize the past. They make injustices easier to defend and, more evidently, harder to see. As my research into this issue progressed, it became...
Objection narrative.
Does the defense have a response?
No.
That objection is overruled. Or sustained, I'm sorry. Can the defense counsel please ask another question?
How do you and your chapter presidents communicate?
I communicate with my chapter presidents and other important people in the organization using encrypted back channels. There is nothing paranoid about this. It's simply a recognition of the fact that expressing our unpopular opinions over the internet will create controversy and give us backlash. And I believe it will be constantly monitored by those in power.
What happened to the computers?
Unfortunately, the computers used for these communications are no longer available. They were decommissioned and erased in October of 2019 as a part of an upgrade for our technology.
What information did the messages contain?
The messages contained information such as press the removal agenda while you still have public interest, don't let up, and be aggressive, all in a figurative sense.
Do you advocate for violence?
While I do believe that chapters should be energetic in pursuing the removal of local offensive statues, I certainly do not advocate for property destruction or even violence.
How are you involved in removing the statue?
Whenever I choose to get involved in the removal of a local statue, it's really only in a general way, such as offering words of encouragement, maybe something along the lines of nice job or well done, or perhaps dissuading organizations that have taken things too far.
During the protest, did you say energetic tango?
I certainly did not shout energetic tango. It's a demeaning phrase, and I believe it's an unjust nickname for me.
What happened during the protest?
I was watching the protest through a live stream as I was at my home in the Midwest working on an article. I thought that Britt Smithson did a good job with the protest and the use of the media. I even thought that the crowd was exuberant and ready for some kind of action. I don't exactly recall saying anything during the protest, and if I did, it probably would have been something like good job or anything along the lines of. However, I do often make little encouraging statements when I watch local events. After Wesley Everett's outburst, I was in shock and I contacted Smithson.
Objection narrative.
Sustained. Can defense counsel ask another question?
After the protest, what happened to debunking myth theory?
We immediately suspended all chapter activities in Pine County, and events in other parts of the world are suspended until further notice.
No more further questions, Your Honor.
Does the state have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. It's very convenient that all your computer's memory was erased soon after the protest on September 16th, isn't it?
They were erased as a part of a technological upgrade.
But it was right after the protest on September 16th?
That is when our organization chose to upgrade all of our technology.
Moving on. Are your DMIT member groups dedicated to taking forceful action against specific monuments and statues?
I don't understand the question.
I'll repeat it for you. Are your DMIT chapter groups dedicated to taking forceful action against specific monuments and statues?
I'd say that lies more in how passionate the chapter president is about this cause. I do not control specific chapters in parts of the world. I only control the organization as a whole.
Do you remember making a sworn statement?
I don't understand.
Do you remember making a sworn statement for today?
Yes.
You know that both sides are relying on that sworn statement?
Yes.
I'm now showing opposing counsel Tracy Whitney's statement, page 40, line 28. I am now going to read aloud to you a piece of your statement. Please follow along and let me know if I read anything correctly. Soon the idea of DMIT chapters was spawned, a group dedicated to taking forceful action against specific monuments and statues. Did I read that correctly?
It does say groups dedicated, and you did say a group dedicated, implying this is a single group when it is not.
I'm sorry, I didn't, but I'll just ask you again. Thank you, Bailiff, you could stop screen sharing. Are your DMIT chapter groups dedicated to taking forceful action against specific monuments and statues?
I'd say yes, if they are offensive.
You wrote a letter to the mayor of Barryton regarding the Alton Berry statue?
That is true.
In this letter, you demanded that the city council take the statue down?
Yes, as it has an offensive history.
Would you recognize a copy of this letter if it was shown to you?
Probably.
Your Honor, Exhibit 6 has already been brought into evidence. Bailiff, will you please start screen sharing? The date of this letter is April 2019?
Yes.
And the letter is signed Tracy Whitney, President, correct?
It does say that, yes.
That's you, right?
That would be my name.
And in the last paragraph, you threaten unpleasant consequences if the city council doesn't do what you demand?
Yes, and by that I meant the riots that took place.
Please just answer the question.
Yes.
Thank you, Bailiff. You may stop screen sharing. The beating of Del Hubbard with a sledgehammer was an unpleasant consequence?
Absolutely.
So Del Hubbard was beat with a sledgehammer because because Merrill Grimm failed to comply with your chapter's wishes.
I apologize. I do not understand the question.
Okay, I will ask again. The beating of Del Hubbard with a sledgehammer was an unpleasant consequence.
The beating of Del Hubbard with a sledgehammer was an action done by Wesley Everett. This has nothing to do with what DMIT was trying to accomplish at that rally.
Your Honor, please instruct the witness to answer the question.
Will you ask the question again to the witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The beating of Del Hubbard with a sledgehammer was an unpleasant consequence.
I'd say yes.
Thank you. Moving on, it's normal for you to directly contact towns regarding the removal of individual statues.
I do it sometimes, yes.
So Smithson, the chapter head, did not write this letter.
I don't recall who wrote the letter.
It was signed by you, though, right?
Yes, my name is on the letter, but I do not recall who wrote it.
You yourself directly contacted the town of Barryton regarding the removal of the Alton Berry statue?
I don't recall.
We will move on then. You claim that you are very loosely involved in the affairs of individual DMIT chapters.
Yes, that is true.
But you still wrote this letter and wrote the speeches and was very involved in sending emails with your chapter head to plan this protest.
As I stated before, I do not recall writing the letter, and I do not recall who, if anyone, had helped me write it.
I'm sorry, Ms. Whitney, we are not talking about the letter right now. We are talking about the emails sent between you and Wesley Everett.
I did communicate with Wesley Everett through email, although those could have been drafted by staff members.
And they were, but even if they were drafted by staff members, they were signed by you.
Yes, they were signed by me.
So Wesley Everett had every reason to believe that it was you telling him.
I'd say yes.
And these staff members were representing your organization, correct?
Yes.
So even if you didn't actually write these letters, they were still from you in the sense that it was from your organization.
Yes, from my organization as a whole.
Thank you. Moving on. You were on a live stream watching the protest?
Yes.
You may have said things on said live stream.
I may have, but I don't recall.
It's possible that you did shout instructions to your followers.
I do not recall.
You've heard Del Hubbard and Wesley Everett testify today that they heard you shout "energetic tango" at the September 16th protest.
I certainly did not shout "energetic tango," but they did say so.
So you still claim that you didn't?
I did not.
Excuse me. Do you, hold on, give me 1 second. Do you believe that every single statue must be taken down?
If it is